Hi, and welcome to part 2 of this two-part introduction to the Gospel according to St. Luke. I hope you've been enjoying the sermons over the past few weeks where we've been encountering individuals that Jesus met along the way, and that Luke felt it particularly important that he wanted to draw our attention to, because Luke focuses on individuals and how their lives are changed when they meet Jesus. So this week we're going to think a little bit about the historical context first. So the book of Acts, which was the second part of Luke's two-part account of the church, ends with the Paul being in prison. Now, as Luke doesn't mention the destruction of the temple in Jerusalem, that happened around AD 70, most theologians think that Luke finished the account somewhere around 69, which is about 30 years after Jesus died. The churches at that time were being planted and Christianity was growing, but so too was the opposition to Christianity. So question number one, why did Luke write his account? Well, we know that he was a doctor. Paul refers to him in the book of Colossians as the beloved doctor. We know that he accompanied Paul on some of his journeys, and you can go into the book of Acts where Luke's writing, and he recounts in 4 passages where he was travelling with Paul, and he talked about when we did this and when we did that. So although he wasn't an eyewitness to the life of Jesus, as far as we know, he was certainly an eyewitness to the life and the speaking and dealings with people that Paul did. In his introduction, he talks about a particular individual called Theophilus. Theophilus breaks down into 2 Greek words meaning someone who loves God. So we don't actually know if this was a real individual or that Luke was thinking of someone in particular who was a Gentile who didn't understand necessarily the Jewish background to faith. And for that reason, Luke particularly focuses on Gentile readers. He doesn't use so much of the prophecy that Matthew does, who was writing for Jewish readers. Nonetheless, we're told from that very opening of the book of Luke that this was a well-researched account written by someone who, although wasn't an eyewitness to the life of Jesus, was an eyewitness to a substantial amount of church history. I've already referred to the fact that Luke is the first part of a 2-part volume of the history of Jesus in the church, and particularly Luke is interested in talking to Gentiles and bringing in the fact that Jesus' death, resurrection and ministry wasn't just for Jews, but it was for everyone, and therefore for him that it really happened in real time, in real history, was very important. The focus for Luke was that the whole life of Jesus and the witnessing to the life and growth of the church was all part of what he referred to as salvation history. In other words, God walking with people and dealing with people in the mire of their everyday life. So maybe if you just paused for a moment and thought, what are the main themes that I recall about Luke? I'll remind you of a few of them. Luke, above all else, is one of the gospel writers who is so focused on God's Spirit that it permeates the whole of Luke's account. In Luke 9, verse 51, we're told that Jesus turns his face to Jerusalem. And in Luke 18:14, he ends there. So a substantial amount of Luke's account is actually what we might refer to as the road to Jerusalem, where Jesus knew that that's where that he needed to be. Even though his disciples and family were warning him he was likely to be killed, he knew that he needed to go there. Luke's gospel is filled with community and crowds of people, but at the same time he was focusing on outcasts and particularly women, and you'll see a lot of accounts in Luke where Jesus has time to deal and listen to women. Luke talks about good news for the poor, and that wasn't just those who were physically poor, but who were poor in spirit. And it may surprise you to know that throughout Luke's gospel, Jesus has encounters with 100 individuals, and that isn't counting the 12 disciples as individuals, 100 individuals. So even though crowds are important, it was as though Jesus saw through the crowd to the individual. And above all else, Luke is the gospel of joy. I don't know if you've ever thought about what parts of Luke are unique only to Luke. Well, the census, we wouldn't know anything about it in the birth narratives if it wasn't for Luke. The shepherds in the field, it's only Luke that tells us about that. Simeon, who prayed for his eyes to be open, only in Luke. Jesus at the age of 12 at the temple, only in Luke. And it's only Luke again that brings us not through just to the cross, but right through to the ascension, because for him that was important, that Jesus not only died and rose again, but he ascended into heaven. Also in terms of parables, I know we sort of read them, we think about them, we know what they are, but have you ever thought about how many of those parables are unique to Luke? Well, In all the three main gospel writers' accounts, there are 33 parables. John has no parables at all. He's a very different approach to the life of Jesus. So if we take 33 parables across the first three gospel accounts, Luke has 24 of them, and 18 of those are unique to him. Matthew has 23, but only 11 are unique to him, and Mark has 8, of which only 2 are unique. So there's something in the middle of Luke's gospel that draws attention to not just the life of Jesus, but the teachings of Jesus. And here are some of the ones that you mightn't have thought of that are only in Luke: the prodigal son, the good Samaritan, the rich man and Lazarus, the rich fool, the Pharisee and the tax collector. So I hope that you've enjoyed these short 2 weeks introduction to the Gospel according to Luke, and I hope that perhaps it will encourage you to pick up the Gospel account again and read into it and look for those individual encounters and realise that just like those people, we can be changed and should be changed every day by encountering Jesus. Thanks for listening. Bye.